Hello everyone, this is Dr. Rebecca Wood, and the Week 7 lecture is about the process of revision. And so this week everyone should hopefully have a nice draft already of their final paper. And so we're going to talk about writing, rewriting, and editing, including the step of finding a proofreading partner to help find mistakes that you can't see anymore because you've been working on your paper so long and it all kind of runs together. The first step in rereading, revising, making your paper better is to quickly skim over your entire paper. Make sure you've included all parts of the assignment. Is there supposed to be a cover page, and do you have one? If so, does the text of the paper fulfill the requirements of the assignment? In other words, if the assignment calls for at least 4 full pages of text, do you have 4 full pages of text yet? And also, did the assignment call for research and therefore require in-text citations for all material found in your research, as well as a references page? And do you have those citations and that references page ready yet? I find that it's helpful to have the references page done early in the writing process for a research paper. And also, please make sure to cite your material in your paper as you go. So when you put in quoted material or paraphrase material, just put in that in-text citation right after it instead of trying to wait till later and come back and document, because that's almost impossible to do a really good job without a lot of tremendous work after the fact. Also, is all of your text double spaced with the first line of each paragraph indented? Is each paragraph about 1/3 to a 1/2 page long, so you don't have any giant paragraphs or any little short paragraphs? Have you run spell check yet? Make sure that you do, because your instructors will notice if you have misspellings that are easily caught in spell check. Also, read your entire paper more closely with an open mind. And so the first step to effective revising and editing is to read what you have already written. The first draft or two of your paper should not be perfect. You don't need perfection at all, but especially not early in the writing process, because being too picky at the first part of the writing process slows down your entire process. The early stages of the writing process should focus on synthesizing ideas, connecting your research material to your ideas, and organizing the material you have, as well as a healthy dose of creativity and possibly even fun. I know that might be asking too much, but at least try to enjoy the process as much as you possibly can. Reading your paper out loud can really help you find missing words and other easy to miss mistakes. I know that I still make mistakes in my writing, and when I read my work out loud, that's when I say, oh, there's a the missing there, or I have this word twice in the same sentence and maybe I need to reword half of it. And then read what you wrote in your introduction as if you are a member of your audience. Does your paper have a strong thesis statement? Meaning, are you telling them, your audience, precisely what you're trying to say with the paper? Please don't make them guess what your point is. You want them to know straight away. And have you explained what your paper is about? Have you discussed everything you promised to discuss in the introduction? So if in the introduction you talk about 3 different subtopics, for instance, the causes of global warming are car exhausts, industrial pollution, and possibly cattle flatulence, then make sure that you talk about all of those 3 things throughout your paper in the appropriate places. Do you have specialized terminology in your paper that should be explained in the introduction? Have you used acronyms that should be written out the first time, because not everyone would know that if I say IE, I mean Internet Explorer. Also, read what you wrote in your conclusion. The conclusion of your paper should be the most important part of your paper. That's where you get to have the last word with the audience. And still think of yourself as a member of your audience as you read your conclusion. Have you repeated your thesis or come full circle without repeating the same exact words, kind of stressing what your main point was in the conclusion? Have you wrapped up the main subtopics of your paper? Have you accidentally started a new topic in your conclusion? So if you've been writing a whole paper about endangered tigers, don't start talking about polar bears in the conclusion, or your audience will be left wanting to know what happened to those polar bears, and your paper does not seem finished. And then the middle of the paper, that's kind of like you've got your roadmap between your introduction and your conclusion. Looking at the middle, are there smooth transitions between ideas, sentences, and paragraphs? And we can use some of the transition words and techniques in the web article I've given you a link to, and you can find that also in the PowerPoint file, a little bit easier than trying to copy it from this lecture on the recording. Does the middle of the paper lead the reader from the introduction to the conclusion in a logical manner? When you read your paper, can you understand how you got from point A to point B through your logical progression of ideas? If you're using subtopics, please make sure that all of them are included in both the introduction and conclusion, and in the same order you mention them in the introduction. And is all of the material for each subtopic in the correct paragraph? So you don't want to mix up your industrial pollution throughout all the paragraphs inside the body of the paper. You want to keep that subtopics section together. And then you can outline your paper in the middle of your writing process, or even at the end. So maybe you say, I didn't write an outline on paper or on a computer file when I was pre-writing, I had it in my head. Well, you can actually use an outline at the end of the writing process too, or any other stage, to see how your ideas fit together. So you can outline your paper at the end of the writing process just to see if everything's in the right place. You might find that, oh my goodness, I have some introductory material flat here in the middle of my paper that should be moved up to the introduction. So that outline can be very valuable at any stage. And if you find yourself putting the same subtopic in a couple different places in the middle of the paper in your outline, then it's, you need to move it around and put it together. Getting input on your paper. Now you have your instructor, but your instructor grades your work. So you might say, I would like someone else to look at it first. So perhaps there's a classmate in the class that you've noticed has had some good discussion board comments, and you might contact them and see if they could look at your paper for you. A family member, friend, or coworker could read your paper and make some helpful comments. I've had some editing friends over the years that have saved me from some embarrassing mistakes, or helped me to get my ideas together so that I could write what I needed to write. Have you asked your instructor any questions that you have about the paper? Because you can email me or text me, or put something on the discussion board. It's a little quicker to email me or text me though if you have a question. And also, do you have enough lead time to work with SLU Writing Services? So working with SLU Writing Services can be very helpful, and I do suggest using them if at all possible. Editing for grammar and spelling. Now this is the final stage of things. You don't want to do this too early because you're going to make changes anyway, and if you take a lot of time on your grammar and spelling in the early parts of the writing process, you may run out of time for the really important things that need to be done, like generating ideas and having research material that's well documented that supports your argument. So at the end of the writing process, think about whether each sentence has its own main noun and verb. Do you have any long sentences that leave you breathless when reading them out loud? They may be run-on sentences that need some punctuation, or they need to be split into 2 or 3 shorter sentences. Are there any words in the paper that seem to be out of place or repeated too many times? You may use Microsoft Grammar and Spell Check, but I am not so fond of the grammar check, but you may find it helpful. Spell Check I find to be quite helpful. Also, our old friend, the Purdue Owl, has some information about the revision process. I also have some helpful links and videos in this week's lecture and resources, as well as our optional resources. And as we think about how we're going to write in this class as we finish up, and also in future classes, because you will be writing papers in future classes, remember that a careful revision of a paper can be worth at least a letter grade. So please save enough time to revise carefully. And also, if something goes quite wrong with your final paper, we will have a week in between for you to possibly revise your paper. So keep that in mind too. But of course, it's always best to turn in the best possible copy you can by the deadline. Anyway, I hope you all have a great week, and thank you very much.